Number 1.
This might have all been in my head, but I still wonder about what was going on. I was spending the night at a friend's house when we decided to get on Omegle. After getting bored with the numerous naked guys and people in Halloween masks, my friend fell asleep. I continued to talk to people though. I was connected with a girl who looked about 7 or 8 years old, maybe younger. Either way too young to be on this site. She didn't have her mic on, so we just chatted over the text. I noticed she was constantly looking up, almost above the camera or to the side. The way she typed seemed very advanced for her age. The conversation escalated from what our names were to her offering me sexual things. I was extremely alarmed because I didn't know how old she was, and if someone was there with her, making her do this. I obviously declined the odd offers and began to ask her more questions. Was she alone? How old was she? Was someone making her do this? She kept looking up and beside her, and only answered my questions by saying, "I'm pretty," or some other compliment. Finally, I said, "I'm being very serious. Please tell me if someone is with you and making you do this." She looked around again and replied by saying, "I have to leave now. Bye." The little girl waved and disconnected. I still wonder what happened to her, or if she was even real. I guess I'll never know.
Number 2.
Hey everyone, posting from a throwaway to keep my family private. This is a story about my great-grandmother, and she was known in some circles due to books she'd written. My great-grandmother, called Oma, which I know means grandmother in German, and she was my great-grandma, but she was already just Oma when I was born. She was born in 1919 in Germany. When she was 16 years old, she ended up in a nasty little place known as Buchenwald. Buchenwald was a concentration camp, most notorious for testing experimental vaccines on its inmates. Thankfully, Oma survived and lived her life fully for her family that didn't make it. She was always in my mind as the kind-faced old lady who loved dogs and force-feeding her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The story takes place in 1979 when she was 60 years old and living in Manhattan. Nothing scared Oma. She'd seen it all, so she really didn't think anything of walking home alone at night with her groceries. She was walking down a sidewalk, and she noticed a really big man out of the corner of her eye, and dismissed it. She didn't care. Then she heard speeding footsteps, a hand on her shoulder, and she was being forced into an alleyway at gunpoint. The mugger demanded she hand over anything worth anything she had on her, saying how he wasn't afraid to beat an old bitch's ass. What my Oma said to the man went down in family folklore, and to this day is the stuff of legend in my book. Oh, I'm not afraid of getting hit by someone. The Nazis in the camps used to do it all the time, though I guess I'm more used to whips, not gun butts. Even though it was kinda dark, you could hear the color draining from his face. He said he was sorry and stepped aside to let her continue on her merry old way. This might sound sad, I know. However, my Oma was a happy old lady who often talked about her time in Buchenwald. Sort of therapeutic, I guess. She passed away at 93 in 2012. There are many things I love and miss about her, but the story of a middle-aged Oma talking down a mugger might be my favorite. Edit. I am aware of the inconsistencies for these dates. My Oma came from a poor family who didn't really keep record of much. She was a teenager around the time of the Holocaust, and believes she was between the ages of 16 and 18 at Buchenwald, and younger when she was in one of the satellite camps. That, along with her yellow star, another survivor she remained in contact with till her death, and her family members' names in memorial databases, are or what we have to go on.
Number 3.
Okay, second time posting on the subreddit, so be kind. I've had quite a few creepy experiences in my life. My boyfriend jokes that I'm a magnet for serial killers / creepy guys in general. I figured I'd share since y'all enjoyed the last one so much. I live not too far from Pittsburgh. Where I grew up wasn't the best area, and my parents weren't the best either. 10 years ago, I was 15, and really stupid. Like really stupid. My parents let me do whatever I wanted, without consequence. So I was a huge brat. I thought of myself as very mature and independent, since I had been looking after myself since a very young age. Think of bratty Matilda. I was a lot more brave than I should have been. Where I grew up, a lot of the kids in my neighborhood were armed with knives for defense. I was no exception. Thinking back, maybe instead of giving kids knife lessons at 6 years old, maybe you should just keep them inside. So it was late, probably 1:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. I had left my house without my parents' knowledge and was headed to my friend's house to smoke a bowl. It was maybe a half an hour walk, starting with a very steep hill, past a local bar, then I walked through a pretty rough neighborhood. I had walked it many times before. I thought nothing of it. I made it to the bottom of the hill without incident. I was walking past a local bar. I lit up a cigarette and noticed a guy standing outside smoking too. He was anywhere between 40 and 50 years old. It's hard to tell ages where I live, honestly, because most people here work their hands to the bone. Needless to say, hours of working overtime and drinking away your sorrows does not age you well. He didn't look out of place for the town either. His hands looked dirty, and he was wearing navy blue work overalls, no name tag. He looked at me and nodded a hello, which I returned and thought nothing of it. As is all too common in these stories, maybe 5 minutes later, I get that sinking feeling of being watched. A lot of people in the area frequently lose their licenses due to DUIs, so I tried to rationalize it by thinking he was just walking home from a boozy night and just so happened to live this way. I look behind me when I get to an intersection, so I just look like I'm looking for cars coming. He's about 30 to 40 feet behind me, walking slow and deliberately. Instead of crossing the street and doubling back, heading to the local police station, which was only about 4 minutes away if I sprinted, the intelligent 15-year-old me decided to figure out if he was really following me by taking my track to the alleyways instead of the main road. I turned off the main road and started walking faster. The guy followed me and matched my pace. Intelligent me tried to lose him. I came up with a brilliant idea to cut through the shortcut I had. You go in between these two houses. They are all very close together in that part of town, maybe a 2.5 foot gap. Towards the back of the house is a gate that has an actual padlock on the opposite side, and the gate was always open. It would be very hard to jump over because there was a window air conditioning unit right above it. You had to duck or maneuver around it, so I would run through, lock the gate, and run to my friends. I even planned to laugh as I ran away. It didn't go as planned. I started running, turned onto the street, ran in between the two houses and to the gate, which was locked for the first time ever, and a junky refrigerator was on the opposite side, blocking me from climbing over. I had literally put myself in a corner for this guy. I swore, tried to climb over and get on top of the fridge somehow, but the air conditioning unit made it impossible. He was standing there for what seemed like forever. I was hyperventilating, like a mouse cornered by a cat. I felt like I was going to pass out. He was about 10 feet away, and he said, "Hey," in a very low voice. I don't remember thinking about it, but I had pulled out my trusty knife and flicked it open. The blade was about 4 inches long. He stopped. I held it out and spat, "I'm going to stab you," and he actually laughed and started walking toward me again. I then screamed, "I'm going to stab you," and postured at him. A voice from above me called out, "Ha ha ha ha, she's gonna effing kill you, man." The creep looked up and turned tail and ran, saying nothing. I looked up, still wide-eyed, brandished by my pink hunting knife. It was a guy in his mid-20s, African American, smoking a cigarette outside his window. "Hey, Wait right there, and don't stab me when I come down. Ha ha ha. He came down, and I put my knife away. He asked if I was okay, and I started crying. He said his name was Trayvon. Him and I sat and smoked on his porch, bullshitting until sunrise. We didn't call the cops. I was too afraid of getting in trouble with my parents. He told me if I ever needed anything, to come to him, and jokingly, that if he ever needed a creeper stabbed, he'd come to me. I had a promise not to be walking the streets at night anymore, which I was totally fine with. Trayvon walked me to my friend's house that morning, and I never told anyone about what happened at that time. I was way too embarrassed at how stupid I was. The only ones who know now are Trayvon, the creeper, my boyfriend, and you guys. I'm glad I met Trayvon, but late night bar stalker, let's never meet again, or else you could get stabbed. Ha 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 ha. Don't be stupid at night, you guys. Edit. I know I don't write well, so sorry. Also, I have since moved out of the area. There's a staggering number of sex offenders living around there.